Gather round, and let me tell you the story of what some claim to be the longest ethnic civil war in history. This is the story of the Kiriji War. In the heart of Yoruba land, within the country we today call Nigeria, there once was a mighty kingdom known as Oyo. For many generations it reigned, the dominant force in all the lands. But, as all things do, the Oyo Empire eventually saw decline. With a jihad from the north in 1823, Afonja, general of the Oyo army, was killed, and its power waned. With the fall of Oyo, the year 1830 saw a military encampment known as Ibadan, poised to be the successor of the old Oyo Empire. Mind you, Oyo was still around, but no longer the imperial power it once was. To maintain effective governance in the region, Ibadan appointed Ajeles, local generals to those of us not of Yoruba land, enforcers of her dominance over the neighboring city-states such as Ekiti and Ijesha. Now, as we all know, unchecked power can often lead to corruption. The Ibadan-appointed Ajeles were no different. They soon became despots, with little regard for the people they oversaw. Ibadan wanted a unified Yoruba nation, while other kingdoms sought independent governance. Something would have to give. This boiling point would come in 1877. To resolve a trade embargo placed upon Ibadan by the Egbas, the then ruler, Are Obadoke Latosa, resolved to declare war on Egba land to the west. To the east, an incident was unfolding. In Okemesi, the resident Ajele interrupted a celebration and assaulted the lady companion of a warrior, Prince Fabumi. Fabumi retaliated, killing the Ajele and inciting the wrath of Ibadan. This spread a wave of rebellion through eastern Yoruba land. Military leaders, primarily of Ekiti and Ijesha, formed a coalition to take on Ibadan's forces, the Ekiti Parapo. Egba, Ijebu, and Ilorin, for their own reasons, also joined this alliance. Ibadan was led by its commander-in-chief, Are Latosa, while the Balogun of the Ekiti Parapo was Prince Fabumi, who 2 years into the war in 1879 handed over leadership to Orisharaibi Ogundamola, perhaps better known as Ogedengbe of Ijesha. Ogedengbe was a legendary warrior and formidable military leader who had taken over the Ekiti Parapo at the request of Fabumi. He brought with him an additional force of an estimated 10,000 men and adopted the title Seriki of Ijesha. The Ekiti Parapo had an estimated 75,000 troops, while Ibadan had somewhere under 180,000. The opposing camps each stood atop a high hill, with the valley between serving as a war ground. The Confederate camp was close to the town of Imesiile, while Ibadan was close to Ibajo. Pitched battles raged from dawn till dusk. Opposing forces met with short-range guns, swords, shields, and spears. It is said that the Fejeboyu stream, which intersected the battlefield, was so polluted with human blood, its water was left undrinkable. Now, in this pivotal conflict, powerful weapons, centuries old yet unknown to Ibadan, were introduced by the Confederates. Cannons. Imported from Germany by the Ekiti Parapo Society of Lagos through benefactors such as Sapara Williams, Nigeria's first indigenous lawyer. The rumble of these weapons echoed across the forests and fields. Kiriji. It is from this onomatopoeia that the war received its name. These weapons did not come cheap. Many slaves were sold to fund the purchases. Unable to import such weapons themselves, Ibadan forces were at a technological disadvantage. And yet, the war was still hard fought on both sides. Such was the sheer might Ibadan had amassed at the time. Let us not forget that this war saw great use of magic, traditional medicine, and strange powers that made both warring parties marvel at the potency of Ogun. By early 1885, surrender was on the table for Ibadan after having found themselves yet another front line fighting alongside Modakeke against Ife. However, support was received in the form of munitions from a Chief Taiwo of Lagos, and so the war intensified yet again. In August of 1885, the commander of Ibadan's forces, Arela Tosa died in Ibadan camp of unverified causes, and Ibadan's morale was greatly diminished. At this same time, the Ekiti Parapo was too fatigued to capitalize. The war was a stalemate. Over the years, there had been multiple attempts at peace negotiations, but all had failed. With the advent of the Anglo-French rivalry for African resources in 1886, the British decided they would interfere with the Yoruba land interior. It would come to pass that on Thursday, September 23, 1886, a proclamation of peace was performed by the Special Commissioner Henry Higgins and Oliver Smith. While no longer actively fighting, the two sides maintained their military outposts, and the Ekiti Parapo remained intact out of its obligation to support Ilori in their ongoing war. 7 years later, on March 14, 1893, a final peace was reached when the two sides dispersed after meeting with Captain Robert Bower, a British officer of Lagos Colony. He presented them with the terms: no more fighting, no more ritual killing, no more slave trade in Yoruba land. The Ekiti Union was granted its independence, though this was short-lived. The two sides were weakened, and southwest Nigeria was soon to be annexed by the British and claimed as a protectorate of the empire. If not for the infighting, would Yoruba land have been able to resist the British? What did the 16 years of conflict amount to? Was the war worth it? Thank you for watching, and join us next time when we take you through another story of Nigeria.